If you're looking to create, grow, and sustain your wealth, download and subscribe to the Pain Points of Wealth podcast at BeBullish.com with Bob, Ryan, and Chris Payne. It's your podcast for market insights, money tips, and real talk on the economy. Download and subscribe at BeBullish.com.
Listen, all you New Yorkers. Excuse me. Taxi. Okay, we're looking around.
This is the 77 WABC minicast.
And tonight on the Rita Cosby Show, it is another busy news night. Fridays are never boring, especially here on the Rita Cosby Show. There are so many major stories on the horizon. Many people wondering, will President Trump actually do another strike on Iran? Remember, he did one many months ago. And could another one be on the horizon? Could it be maybe a strategic strike where maybe they are hitting an IRGC, the Revolutionary Guard Corps locations? There's a whole bunch of different potential targets, and everyone's wondering, will he maybe do a little strike and say, hey, Iran, I'm going to give you one more chance to come to the negotiating table, or really, or else, in a big way. Can you imagine the might of the U.S. and Israel and who knows who else? But that could potentially happen at any moment. Everybody wondering. Meantime, definitely a blow in the U.S. Supreme Court against President Trump on tariffs. And when this decision came down, it was really surprising. Here it is on a Friday, and this big bombshell about the tariffs came down. It wasn't such a surprise that they necessarily voted against President Trump. It just was like they've been sitting on it for months upon months. And that was one of President Trump's arguments. What took them so long? If this was their decision, why did they let him go down so far down the gate with all these countries with these trade deals? And President Trump has definitely negotiated some very strategic ones. So here he is. As soon as the decision came down, President Trump, I called him Rocky earlier today, guys, because he just gets up no matter what comes from the Supreme Court, no matter what happens on any of these decisions. He just kind of keeps going up the steps in Philadelphia and keeps on coming at them and says, no matter what, we're going to come at it a different direction. We're going to do this 10% across the board. We're not going to give up. And he said he was very upset with the decision. Here he is right after it came down.
Well, thank you very much for being here. The Supreme Court's ruling on tariffs is deeply disappointing, and I'm ashamed of certain members of the court, absolutely ashamed, for not having the courage to do what's right for our country.
And he also took some swipes at the high court justices. You know, President Trump never holds back. Here it is.
They're so happy. And they're dancing in the streets, but they won't be dancing for long. That I can assure you. The Democrats on the court are thrilled, but they will automatically vote no. They're an automatic no, just like in Congress. They're an automatic no. They're against anything that makes America strong, healthy, and great again. They also are a frankly disgrace to our nation, those justices. They're an automatic no matter how good a case you have. It's a no.
So President Trump comes out swinging and says, you know what? We're still going to go forward. We'll just come at it from a different direction. Does anybody out there actually think that anyone's going to get back a dime from these deals? And even if they try, it's going to be years upon years upon years. In the meantime, also on a Friday night, always some big developments coming out. Now, Pima County, Arizona Sheriff Chris Nanos, he's the one who's been at the heart of the Nancy Guthrie case. She is still missing. I can't believe this. 3 weeks now. And he is now under big time fire as there are reports that he was locking down the investigation into the Nancy Guthrie abduction, essentially limiting all decisions to just himself and 2 senior officials. He also has faced a lot of criticism for sidelining the FBI and allowing 2 of his senior officers who instead to be in charge of the decisions. How does that seem right? You got the best, greatest law enforcement force in the world, the FBI, and then you say, no, we're not going to use them. We're instead going to use my two senior officials. There are also reports that they want to go and check out Mexico, but Mexico is saying they haven't gotten a formal request yet. How does that make any sense? Why would you not have a formal request to Mexico 5 minutes after Nancy Guthrie disappeared on February 1st? The U.S.-Mexico border is only about an hour away or so from Tucson, Arizona. It is 3 weeks later, and they haven't asked for a formal cooperation from Mexico? Does that make any sense to any of you? It does not to me. I would have right away said, you know what? There's something fishy. There's something suspicious. Needless to say, why not just check Mexico? Have them have their ire up? I would have them looking at the border. I have them looking into any intel that they might have. You never know whether it's an organized cartel or a small group or just an individual. But either way, the border is right there. Why would you never even put a formal request in to the officials there in Mexico? And again, literally about an hour away. So there's a lot of criticism tonight at this sheriff, Chris Nanos, who is coming under a lot of fire for people saying he's pompous, he's inept, are some of the words that people are saying. And this is really very, very troubling. Also, there are officials coming out today saying that there may be more than one person involved in this. Sheriff Mark Lamb is quoted. He's been on Fox News a lot. He is from a neighboring Arizona county. And he essentially came out and said that he thinks that there would be accomplices involved in this situation. Because he said, you know, you look at it, there's a lot of layers here. And for somebody to maybe help in the planning, for somebody to help in the abduction of 84-year-old Nancy Guthrie, for all of these different things, all these different steps, they really feel like, you know what? It had to be more than one individual. So where does the case go from here? The Arizona Attorney General tonight saying, no, the case isn't cold, but it's not looking good now that it is 3 weeks. That is shocking. I never imagined this case would not be solved 3 weeks later between all the local authorities and the FBI. And there's like 400 officers apparently working this case. 400. That's an extraordinary amount. And you got Nancy Guthrie on the, you know, we have no idea where she is. Is it local? Is she over the border? Is she out of the country? Is she still maybe in the Catalina foothills, which is right around the place where her house is? And you got the video of the guy. I mean, you would have thought that would have blown the case wide open. Apparently officials are still trying to track down the gun. They're trying to track down a lot of things tied to that guy. The backpack that they believe was, of course, purchased, they believe, either in Walmart or subsidiary. You would have thought that would have been the big break in the case. And yet here we are 3 weeks later. And now we're hearing that this guy is keeping the case close to the vest. That's incredible. 1-800-848-9222, 1-800-848-9222. And you are listening to The Rita Cosby Show. Let's go to Alice in Ohio on line 4. Alice, your thoughts tonight.
Good evening. Iran cannot be trusted. They're responsible for October 7th, attack in Israel. They're responsible for the terror around the world. They regard us as the big Satan. Israel is the little Satan. They have been given enough time. We have talked to them, and they said, well, give us more time. We talked to them. Give us more time. No. We've already gone after their nuclear warheads. They need to be stopped altogether. We have to cut them off altogether, cut off the head of the snake. They need a regime change. They've murdered thousands of their own people. Ugly things.
Yeah, these people are monsters. There's no question. You know, let me ask you, Alice, you hit a great point there that you believe a lot of this is obviously games by them. And I do too. I believe that it's all talk, and then they never give up anything. And then we also see them doing these sort of war games. They're doing these drills with the Russians. The Russians buzzed by Alaska last night. They were intercepted. They're, of course, working closely with Iran, and they were doing drills off the coast of Iran, too. So there's a lot of like brinksmanship now, but I agree. I think it's just hogwash by them. They've had every chance. And you know, what's remarkable, Alice, President Trump, really to his credit, has been very, I think, incredibly flexible in saying, come to the table, come to the negotiating table. He's given them 5,000 chances. And there are reports tonight that he might do it again. He might even give them a strike that, potentially he's not ruling out maybe some sort of pinprick, strike at a major headquarters or something to say, hey, we know where you are. We can get you. You want it again times 5,000, or if not, come to the table. But maybe it might take a little bit of military action, or who knows? They may just say too bad. And then this becomes really a full throttle attack by the U.S. and I'm sure Israel and who knows who else. But where do you see this going, Alice? Because this dance has been going on for a long time. And I think President Trump, who clearly doesn't have a goal of going to war, he likes to avoid war at all costs. He has bent over backwards for the Iranians. And yet it seems like they have done nothing to comply.
We need to go after Iran. I think every time he gives them more time, they're building more nuclear warheads. They're doing more. No, they've gone back on their word too many times. Enough is enough. I'm not one to promote any kind of warlike activity. Not at all. This has to stop. They're a threat to us. They're a threat to Israel, our biggest ally. They're a threat to anyone. And the Russians need to see how strong we can be. We have the best military in the world, beautiful military minds. They're ready and trained, and they need to be set into action. I think as soon as possible. He's given enough. He's given them enough. He's given them enough rope that they can hang themselves. They need to be stopped.
Yeah, he definitely has been more than flexible, more than kind, offered so many different layers, and yet they seem to still be on this path. And I think part of it is, Alice, these people are ideologue. I mean, they are, they're not just, I don't think, just saying things. They truly do believe in, meeting the 50 virgins at some point. And they may meet them soon. They might even meet them this weekend. Who knows? Because you never know with President Trump. He likes that element of surprise. But that's the problem with these people, that you can't trust them. They never have changed their ways. And their intent, like you said, destroying, their mission, they're still chanting death to, even today. There are reports today that out of the region, they're in these, in the mosque, they're chanting death to Israel, death to America. And, there does not seem to be any sign of change with these people. So it's going to be interesting to see how President Trump handles this. And also, I'm curious, Alice, what kind of intel they have on the ground there, too, because, of course, there's a lot of folks in the resistance, those courageous people you talked about that sadly, like you said, are being slaughtered by their leadership. And they have the guts and courage to rise up. And we're hearing reports that the leadership is killing them even in their hospital beds. I mean, these people have zero mercy. And yet I wonder, too, also the kind of intel and coordination that's going on with them and the U.S., also the Israeli government. Does the Israeli government or the U.S. have any good intel, folks? Maybe any of these, Iranian Revolutionary Guard that on the surface seem real hardcore, but maybe privately are flipping and cooperating, because that would be amazing. And if suddenly, they're ready, poised to take over, if, the Ayatollahs are suddenly wiped off the face of the earth. So there could be a lot of things going on behind the scenes. I have no doubt about that. Alice, thank you very much. I know how much you love this country and love freedom, as I do too. Thank you, Alice. 1-800-848-9222. And we'll continue with your calls, everybody, after the break. You're listening to The Rita Cosby Show.
Rural Americans deserve access to the best of what our nation has to offer, especially health care. Across every state and every community, America's rural hospitals are the first line of defense, protecting our families, neighbors, and loved ones. No matter where you live, hospital care doesn't clock out. They're there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Each year, America's over 5,000 hospitals care for millions of patients, providing 24/7 emergency care, delivering babies, cancer treatments, and other life-saving care that patients rely on. Behind every one of those patients are doctors, nurses, and caregivers working tirelessly to keep people healthy and safe. Hospitals are our community's lifelines. They employ our neighbors and keep our families healthy. But now, some in Congress are threatening access to care. Tell Congress, protect patient care to keep America strong. Don't cut rural health care.